Welcome to this week's episode of A Tale of Two Scribes. I'm the host, Eric Bishop. This is a place where interesting people come to share their stories. I hope you'll support tonight's guest. As for myself, I'm a father, author, travel enthusiast, and lover of the outdoors. If you'd like to see some of my creative works, my novels, please go to my website, ericpbishop.com. Thanks for joining us tonight, and enjoy the journey. Welcome to another episode of A Tale of Two Scribes. Tonight, I am pleased to have Jay Bell with me. Hey, Jay.
Hey there.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I believe it was actually your publicist had reached out to me a couple months ago
Mhm.
and sent me your information. And I was like, yeah, Jay would be an interesting person to talk to. So welcome, welcome.
Well, I hope to live up to that build up. I hope to be interesting, at least not boring. If I can manage that, it'll be fine.
Well, I must say, to start with, when I was reading your bio and everything and getting ready, I love the way your introduction says on your website. I've got it here in front of me, so I just have to read at least the first couple lines, where it says, Jay
Hmm.
Bell wears the secret identity of a typical boring suburban man by day, then transforms to a keyboard punching wordsmith by night. That's a good introduction right there.
Thank you very much. Yes. Yeah, I was definitely suburban man. I mean, I think I could wear that as a cape, and have a little S, maybe SM on my chest. I don't know. That's just whatever, but just something that says suburban man because I got the grill and the yard mowing and the mortgage and all the rest of it. So, it's like, damn, uh, nothing special, just the old suburban man here.
Well, not that there's nothing special, but you're a suburban man. That's fine. Me being a
Sure.
suburban man was literally out mowing my lawn up until 30 minutes for the interview. I set a timer, it went off in my ear, and I'm like, "Ah, I don't got the front done. Maybe I'll finish the front. Maybe I'll finish it after the interview, or I'll just finish it tomorrow evening." So uh,
Yeah, fair.
I had started it in plenty of time, and my son's getting ready to go off to college, and he actually, I,
Hmm.
I literally got one strip done, and he called me. And I hadn't talked to him in like 2 days. He's been at his
Yep.
mom's house. So I was like, well, that's more important than the yard. So I came, sat on the porch, talked to him for like 30 minutes, and I was like, I don't know that I'll get the backyard
Oops.
done, but we'll give it a go. So,
Yeah, and you hate to get halfway done with the front because then it's uneven, and you got to come back later and do it, and now it's uneven for the rest of the week until you get back to. Yeah, no, it's a very if you have that sort of OCD complex that I do, then yeah, that would drive me nuts.
one, I don't know how the Texas weather has been, but I'm in the
Mhm.
Carolinas, and we literally this last week was fairly nice because it like the high got into around 80. It was mainly in the 70s
Mhm.
for about 7 days, but it
Oh, I hate
literally,
you.
well, it seems like for 2 months before that, the heat index most days was at least 100, sometimes 105, 7. It's just, I keep reminding myself, you do live in the South, but every time it gets really hot for periods of time, the other part of me reminds myself, you hate living in the South and the weather, then don't you? So, and I really do.
Yeah, I went out to get the mail. I think I burst into flames spontaneously. It was not pretty.
Yeah. San Diego, I don't know if you have a spot that you're like, man,
Mhm.
the weather here would be a good place to spend most of the year. And for me, that's San Diego.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, economically, that just never was viable options.
No, no, I don't. I'm not yet. Maybe one of these days, but not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be hard pressed to leave Texas. So my wife is from Texas. My kids are both born here, so and raised here. So it's one of those things that once you sort of adopted drink the Kool-Aid of Texas, you're
Mhm.
there, man. It's like it's hard to find someplace else to go that's not Texas to live in. But the weather in San Diego, yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I could visualize maybe a winter house, summer house there, whatever.
You
This
just
this is me. This is me talking big. I'm gonna have a summer house in San
you,
Diego. Yeah,
you
right.
just need some best-selling books in there, and a couple maybe
Yeah, yeah. A few
people
movie
always say the
adaptions.
movie deals and everything
Yeah,
else.
yeah, yeah. Just keep churning away, hitting that keyboard, man. No question.
It's funny how many times over the years people have asked me that. They're like, "Well, when you gonna get a movie deal?" And I'm like, "Well, they
Mhm.
just don't happen." And they're like, "Yeah, but if you get one, you can quit your day job." And you're like, "Don't really understand how this industry works, do you?"
Yeah, yeah. It's good money. It's not retirement money.
Yeah.
If at least for the writer. I mean, you could say if you're become a producer and you get two or three of those under you, yeah, you're in good shape. But
Right.
writers don't typically make the big bucks out of the thing. Although, like I said, it's good money. It's just not retirement money.
Yeah. Well, and it happened. And what I try to tell people too is you can be that lightning in the bottle, the one that hits the big deal.
Hmm.
Just don't expect to be that person. Don't
Right.
make that as your end all be all goal because there's a high probability you're going to be disappointed.
Is this the point that I tell you that we actually did sell the movie rights to Cottonmouth?
No, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah, this is true. We have sold the TV film option rights, and
Wow.
we got people looking at it, whatever that means in Hollywood, right? They're doing
Congratulations.
their thing. So yeah, it's been good. Been good. That was actually how I got the novel into Blackstone to begin with. It was a really strange story. I don't know if you want me to go through the whole
No,
thing,
I'm
but I
not. Yeah,
can.
tell me about it. I'm not familiar with it.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been writing actually for 12, 15 years before this
Hmm.
book. This is a debut because we have a rebranding of my author name, which was Scott Bell. Now it's J.S. Bell.
Hmm.
Different story. All right. So, but the fact is that talking with another friend of mine, a guy named Joshua Hood,
Yeah, I know
has written
Josh.
Clarence
Knew,
West. Okay.
known Josh before.
Yeah, yeah. Good guy, and he and I go back and forth a lot on different topics. And he said, "Look, I know this fella at Blackstone who's the TV film editor, and he's looking for some log lines, to
Hmm.
some pitches, right?" And so he said, "You should throw some of these in here, especially this idea that, for Cottonmouth, which we had talked about before."
Hmm.
So I did, and making the short story as long as I possibly can. Brendan looked at that and said, "Yeah, sounds good. Let me grab hold of this and see what I can do with it, and send in the book." And so I did, and that's how it got into the publisher. Was actually from the TV film guy. So I
Hmm.
was very happy to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, that shows you that things can happen and things that you maybe don't expect, or
Hmm.
the right person gives you some advice and it can open up a lot of doors.
Yeah, gotta keep trying, man.
Yeah, I think from what I remember, maybe Andrews and Wilson, I
Hmm.
believe I believe they've been doing a lot of work through Blackstone and especially
Yep,
the television side of it or the
yep,
entertainment side.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they sold some of the TV film rights to their some of their properties. I'm not sure
Yeah,
which
I
ones,
believe
but yeah.
so.
Hmm.
And another
Absolutely.
group of guys that and really it's the story that you hear from almost every author. Again, every now and then you'll hear about the person that out of the gate is they're the instant success, they're the lightning in the bottle, but for the most part, it's a grind. And I know,
Yeah, instant success. It took me 15 years to be an instant success. So yeah,
right.
like I said, I've got 12 book or 11 books prior to this one, and under different name. So yeah, I've been grinding at this since 2011, give or take. So yeah, it's taken a while.
Yeah. Instant success took a few minutes. So
Hmm. Exactly. And I wouldn't say it's complete success yet. I mean, it's still, you ever talk about these options, right? They could hold it for 18 months and decide that, yeah, they're not going to do anything, throw it back out there. So
yeah,
it's never a done deal until somebody sends you that final contract that says we're going to roll. And then even then, until they roll cameras, you don't get paid. So
right.
you got to wait for that to happen. I may be well into my retirement by that time. We'll see.
Yeah. I remember years
Without,
ago, I was at Thriller Fest and I met Mark Greaney.
mm,
And Mark had, so I knew a little bit about his story at the time, but I didn't know as
mm,
much as I got to know there the next couple of years of seeing him at events and
mm,
interacting with him online and stuff. And same thing, the Gray Man ended up being acquired. I don't know how many years after it came
mm,
out, the rights were acquired, but
yeah,
then they just would flip every 2 to 3 years, whatever the time frame was, and they
mm,
it would get attached to someone that was like, "Ooh, this is going to get made," and it wouldn't get made, and then
yep,
it would get attached, and I know it took well over a decade, maybe even 15 years. I can't remember how long until it
exactly.
finally made in the hands of was the Conan brothers, maybe I think. I
Yeah,
can't
you got
remember
me. Got
his.
me there.
It got made into the Netflix
Mm,
show or Netflix film.
yep.
But then the other thing that most people from the outside don't realize is they think, oh, you wrote a book, so you're going to be involved in you're going to be on set, you're going to be involved in the process. It's
Yeah,
like
if you're Jack Carr, maybe I don't think the rest of us are going to get that level of attention. But yeah,
precisely the words out of my mouth. I was going to say most of us aren't Jack Carr that get
yep,
executive producer and script and approvals and all. It's like,
yep, yeah,
no. Typically, you'll get some money and they'll be like, Leave us alone.
Yes, yes. But wait, I want to cast. You're not going to cast. Trust me on this. So,
Yeah. I think it
but
was
yeah.
years ago, Brad Taylor. I've met Brad and spent some time with
Mm,
him and been super supportive of my career. And I think I had asked him that one time. I was like, dude, why don't you like, haven't you sold the rights? And he was like, I'm not interested at this point, at least. And this was several years back, but he wasn't
mhm.
interested really in selling the rights because the amount of money they were willing to offer him, and then, they would basically be able to do visually whatever
Creative,
they
yeah.
wanted.
Creative
And
control. Yep.
he wanted Pike to be, his character. He didn't want Pike to
Yeah.
all of a sudden be Patricia Logan,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just
Sure.
have a female character and go that way with a video,
Hmm.
even though he could keep writing his books the way he wanted. It ends up confusing the readers and the people that are watching the medium. So,
Yeah, definitely. I would say that but the length of time thing is something I tell people. It's like, new writers, if I had any advice at all, right? Temper your expectations because it is going to take some time unless you're one of those people, like you said, to catch lightning in a bottle and
mhm.
can, be the quote unquote instant success.
Yeah. The good news is that it happens.
Hmm.
The bad news is too many people think it's going to happen to them, and it doesn't happen. So, I think tempering your
Yeah.
expectations is smart.
Yeah, and that's what I do for it's always been for me. I write for fun. I write for the self-enjoyment that I get out of it. And then the fact that other people like it makes me very happy, and I can do this as my hobby until that time that what was it Robert Jordan said, till they nail the coffin, the last nail of my coffin, something like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, unless something dramatic happens, I intend to keep writing until
Mhm.
I'm can't remember what I want to write or whatever.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe they take
exactly,
my
right.
laptop
Yeah.
away from me.
They're gonna push you out in the porch in your wheelchair, and you'll be dribbling, oatmeal and stuff and trying to type. Like, yeah, I think you need to stop. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, Dad. Or my kids will just like have a fake laptop on my lap, and
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
think I'm
yeah,
typing
right,
something, and I'm not.
right. Yeah, same page over and over again. Do a little Jack Nicholson.
Good job, Dad. But let's circle back real quick and talk about how you got into this, because I think it's always kind of
Okay.
an interesting story when someone decides to go into writing, and then what is that impetus to kind of have them for the first time put pen to paper,
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
fingers to the keyboard.
Exactly. Well, I'm a victim of the old phrase, that looks easy, I could do it. Right. Hey, I bought an old house that needed to be fixed up. I've seen people fix up houses. I can do that. It's easy. Right. 80,000 trips to Home Depot later, you've got one project done.
Hmm.
So, that's part of it. I was thinking, this looks easy. I like reading. I enjoy it. I should give this a try.
Hmm.
So, and that was really to go back to how I got into it. I mean, reading is the biggest piece of that. I mean, I started when I was a teenager. I was kind of I hated reading until I was 14 years old, something like that, 13, 14. And my dad got me a book of believe it or not, Conan the Barbarian stories,
Mm.
right? Read that, and it had swords, and it had, dragons, and no, not dragons, but evil wizards, and all
Hmm.
these things that a 14-year-old boy like. So then I turned on to reading, and I read everything. I read all the pulps. I read, the Mickey Spillanes. I read the Elmore Leonards. I read, all the Robert Heinlein, everybody that I could grab my hands onto at that time. Didn't matter what genre. I was all over it,
Hmm.
and enjoyed all those stories, right? And so, I'm cruising along thinking, I'm not finding the stuff that I want to read anymore as I was
Yeah.
looking through bookstores. So I'm going to try, just sit down and try my own. And this was back in the day. I was 30 years old. I had a monochrome green screen monitor
Hmm.
um, with a word processing program. All right, and my infant son was on my lap as I was typing this out. Right, so I wrote this story. It was called Jaeger's Law, and it was a Western, and it was bloody awful. All right, just I have to tell you, it was freaking trash. I mean, at that time, I didn't, there was no internet, there was no, getting other people. You had to send it off by, these big packets in the mail
Right.
to folks, and it just became too much of a drag to try to figure out what went wrong and why it was getting rejected and yada yada, and had family to raise. So I put it aside, put
Hmm.
the whole writing thing aside for 20 years, give or take.
Wow.
And then, kids are grown, they're out of the house. I got nothing to do. I don't have to go to soccer games. I don't have to go to basketball games or pageants or any of that nonsense anymore.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't say nonsense, but any of that dad, I didn't have to do any of that dad stuff anymore. And I hate golf, so that was out as a hobby. So I got to thinking, I should try this again.
Hmm.
And so I started writing again and, again, pleasing myself, making myself happy, thinking, man, this is good. I really like this. And I was lucky enough to get involved in an online community at the time. I assume the website is still there. It's scribophile.com,
Okay.
and it's an online critique group where you critique other people's chapters,
Yeah.
and they critique yours in exchange, and you work sort of as a go back and forth. And I learned a lot at that level from just how to get things done, how to say things, how
Hmm.
to write things, and a lot of great feedback from that. So it helped me build the craft of writing into something that eventually I took off on my own and could
Right.
didn't need that support. But that's how I got into it, and I published a couple of short stories online.
Okay.
I was like, man, people like this stuff, so let me
Hmm.
try a novel. Let me go back to Jaeger's Law, and I updated it to a modern day trucker and ex-Marine, and got into lots of fights and explosions, and probably had somebody die every other page. It's one of those kind of things. Um, but it was great, and I got that published in 2014, and took off from there.
Wow. What how was that process like for you in 2014? Because by then
Hmm.
we're in the ebook world, so kind of the
Hmm.
market's changed dramatically from when you had
Oh yeah,
originally faced all your rejection. So how did it work for you for that first initial
yeah.
publishing?
That's a great question. I had an agent for a little while.
Okay.
A lovely person. She did her best to sell it. She pushed it to all the big houses, and I was rejected by all the big boys. And then she
Hmm.
said, you need to totally revamp the story. And I was like, I don't want to,
Right.
I kind of like it where it is. And so, we parted ways. It was amicable and everything. So then
Hmm.
I was on the query trail for another X number of months or years.
Yeah.
And again, a friend of mine said, hey, you should try this small press actually out of North Carolina. You should probably
Okay.
be close, called Red Adept. And
Hmm.
the editor at Red Adept liked the book, bought it. We went through the whole process. She edited it. She did the whole thing, and
Hmm.
um, that's how it got to the shelves, not the shelves, the electronic shelves, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so and it's been out.
So many ways to get there.
Mm-hmm.
My story's similar in the sense of I went to Thriller Fest multiple years and did Pitch
Hmm.
Fest, and I had a couple times on two different books that I really thought I had agents hooked in, and they seemed to always have a reason to say no, and it wasn't
Hmm.
consistent though, because I thought, okay, I got a problem with the book, but what I would find is one agent would have an issue with my dialogue and the next agent would love the dialogue and they'd have an issue with
Yeah.
something else. So this it's so subjective. And that's what I kind of finally
Hmm.
realized. Okay, that's not the right agent for you. It doesn't mean that it is going to get published, but at least it's not consistent negativity towards a certain thing. So you're not doing certain
Yep.
things wrong according to most of the people you're talking to. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I went through, I think the first time I sent a query letter was 2016. Last time I sent one was probably 2020. And that was over four
Right.
books that I queried. And finally, after talking to, and the one that ended up getting published, The Body Man, my debut, um,
Mhm.
I had like Don Bentley had read it, Adam Hamdy. So I had some, heavy hitters
Nice. Yeah.
read it and like, yeah, no problem getting this book published. And I still couldn't get it. And I even had some of them recommended to their agents. And
Right.
it was tough politically that time because it was a political
Hmm.
thriller. There was a lot about the White House. I think at that
Hmm.
point we were still in Trump presidency. Yeah, we were actually halfway, two-thirds through Trump. So I was getting a lot of kickback for that. Like I had one woman say, "This is a great book. I can't get a deal for you though in this climate right now with this type of book." And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
that's BS. Then it's not a great book because a great book you should be able to get a deal no matter what. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I got pretty frustrated with the process. And another writing friend of mine said, "Hey, I'm with a smaller publisher. Why don't you just query them?" And I'm like,
Hmm.
didn't or self-publish. That was the thing I heard from like
Yeah. Yeah.
even like
Right.
Andrews and Wilson told me that. Go
Right.
self-publish. And I'm like,
Right.
I don't want to self-publish. I don't. And it wasn't the stigma of self-publishing. It
Hmm.
was I've already got a writer's hat on. I don't want 50 other hats on my head. I don't have the time,
Yes.
resources, or anything. Especially at that point, I was married and I could not have gotten her online of spending money to publish a book. So it was just
Hmm.
not an option. So I
Oh yeah.
ended up going with a small publisher, queried them, and like literally within a 2 week period, I had an offer for 3 books from
There
the
you go.
small publisher. So I went down that road. That's a whole nother story. Now I
Hmm.
am self-published. Now I created my own imprint because it made more sense and I made more money creating my own
Yeah.
imprint because I've learned so much about the industry in the past like 5 years that it's like, okay, I can't completely reproduce what some of the publishers do, but I can reproduce what a lot of the smaller people are doing.
Yeah.
And I was just resource wise, I had the ability for funds to be able to pay for things, professional editor, professional cover. So I
Hmm.
outsource all those things and I just mainly focus on the things that I'm better at instead of trying to obviously do all of it because I won't do it all well. So,
Yeah. Right. Well, that's right. Because self-publishing is, if you do it right, it takes some effort because you
yeah,
have to, it's about the formatting, it's about the covers, it's about the editing, it's about all those things you said.
right.
And then probably a dozen more that I'm not even familiar with. But I know I have friends who have done that, and I have one young lady who is a good long-term friend of mine, self-published a terrific book, and she did everything correct. And I sort of followed her journey. I was like, oh my God, this is hard. I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
I'm lazy by nature. I want somebody else to do all that stuff. So yeah, the world. I mean, you can, if you want to, you can write a bunch of hash and throw it out on Kindle Direct and have a novel, right?
right.
Whether it's readable or not doesn't matter. I mean, you could say you're a writer because you have
Sure.
a published book. Um, but yeah, I like not to have to do all that extra stuff on my own. Like you said, I
Hmm.
want somebody else to pay for editing. I want somebody else to pay for the cover. I want somebody else to do, the formatting work and all the stuff that has to do to get published on all the different websites and so on and so
Right.
forth. So it just makes sense to have somebody else do it instead of me. Like you said, I don't even have a hat at this point in time. So yeah, let
That's
alone a
actually
purple.
good though. Well, you're
Let
doing
alone
your
purple.
job though. You're writing the books. So
Yep.
which is the most important job. And that's what I always tell
Hmm.
people. Look, everything else is very important, but if you don't write a quality book, you're not going to get anywhere. And
Hmm.
it's kind of like if you
Yeah.
don't, people that say, well, I'm going to write something, but I just keep tweaking it and I keep working on it. And it's like,
Hmm.
get the first draft done. Maybe you'll
Yeah.
have to
Right.
rewrite it, but at least get the first draft done because you
Oh
owe
yeah.
yourself that, especially if you start it. I always tell, even with my kids, if you're going to start something, it's the old adage my parents told me, finish it
Mhm.
and do a good job of it. And
Yep.
if you don't like doing it at that point, hey, when it comes to writing, if you didn't enjoy the process, if you didn't like what you created, don't ever do it again because it'd be torture if you hated to write and every day you sat down and said, maybe I'll like this novel and you hated it and you do
Hmm.
it again.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's the definition of
No.
insanity.
Yeah. If you're gonna write, you better like what you write because you're gonna read it over and over and over again as you go through the process. But and I, circle back to your point earlier about the subjectivity of this business. It is
Mhm.
really amazing to me. You have people who are professionals at this, and mostly use the word professionals. I'm sorry, I'm doing too many air quotes, but you have professionals in the business, right? Slush readers that do this for a living. They're looking for the next great novel.
Right.
And I got feedback on Cottonmouth from one agent, slush readers, who said all your characters are two-dimensional. They're all flat. Like, oh, okay. I don't have to send you a Christmas card now. Then
Right.
and then I'm talking to one of the actually one of the people who read it for in Hollywood, who said, I just really love how well fleshed out your characters are, and how well do you write women and blah blah blah. I'm like, I love you, but it's totally different than the other feedback I got. But yeah, thank
Right.
you for that. So now you are on my Christmas card list. So yeah,
Yeah,
but it is super subjective. You see that in the reviews if you go back and look at some of the reviews that you get on your books and version that I couldn't finish this book because XYZ, and then you get the other that this was the best thing I've ever read. So it is so subjective. You can't just say that this book is good or that book is bad because everybody is different how they
right.
perceive it.
Well, even and I get it too, as kind of for myself, my reading habits have changed, especially since I started
Hmm.
writing.
Oh my
Um,
God. Yes, I can't read now. I'm sorry, I can't. Go ahead. Go
I
ahead. You're saying.
struggle, I struggle. I'll
Hmm.
honestly admit to people because they'll be like, "Oh
Yeah.
man, this whatever, fill in the blank for New York Times bestsellers.
Hmm.
Their last book was so great," and I'm like, "When is the last time I read a book by them?
Yep.
Maybe when I
Yep.
started writing in 2014. Not, and some of them
Oh, yeah.
have, but it's just, and I think it was Brian Wilson, or Brian Andrews,
Hmm.
at Thriller Fest one year when I was talking to him about it. He had mentioned about how it is a challenge to like write a thriller and then constantly read other thrillers. You almost
Hmm.
need to, I think, cleanse your palate. And it's good to, as when you're writing a political thriller or suspense book, I think it's good that the next book you pick up maybe should be a fantasy or maybe should be romance or whatever, just to kind of get some different voices in there and you're not just so
Hmm.
into that world. And for some people, maybe they can do it. For me,
Yeah.
I end up reading a lot of stuff. I sat down and I'm reading a book now before I go to sleep about like the ancient pyramids,
Hmm.
and it's Graham Hancock book. Like completely not even going fiction, just totally nonfiction.
Hmm.
Turn my brain off at night. I get through about 6 or 7 pages, and I literally the book is probably on my chest. Then I wake up and turn the light off. So
Well,
um,
I appreciate that you can do that with other genres. I do read many different genres, especially I sort of concentrate either on mystery, suspense, crime fiction, or science fiction, fantasy.
mm,
But I'll tell you, I can't turn my inner editor off for any of those.
gotcha.
So I'm looking at how did they, if I'm reading along and I'm liking something, I'm thinking, how did they do that? How did they make me
Hmm.
so happy that I can read this? But then I run across some of the big name authors, and I use the capital letters to say big name authors that people rave about. And I read their stuff, and they got facts wrong. They have they're melodramatic, and it just annoys the crap out of me that you get these folks who are like, this is the best thing ever, and subjectively I read it and go, bleh.
Right.
How did they get? How does this guy, belch out a book and sell 2 million copies? Because that's exactly what he did. He just belched it out. It was not nothing pretty about it.
Well, and the other dirty secret that people talk about, but they whisper about it, and I talk about it
Mhm.
vaguely on the podcast sometimes, is they might have wrote it. I mean, I had no, I was so,
Yeah.
and again, I'm sensitive about it. I never talk names, but I
Hmm.
had no clue when I started this. And I wrote in first book in 2014, but I didn't actually
Hmm.
dive into the publishing industry and try to sell it till 2016.
Sure.
And started going to conferences in 17, and I start talking to people. And I remember I was talking to this one person who I knew had done co-writing because it had been a discussion before, and
Hmm.
I was ignorant. So I just said, "So, like, how do you work with this?" And I mentioned the name of the person that they'd co-wrote a book with. I said, how do you guys hand it off? What do you do?" And he looked at me and he just said, "Eric, if you see a book with two names on it, the smaller name wrote the book." And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
how this
Yeah. Yeah.
works."
Yeah. No,
Not
I hear you.
always, but
Yeah, I hear you. I would say that I agree, and I don't want to come off like this is Jay Bell being being jealous because these big names are making all this money. It's just yeah, the quality of writing is tough when you after you started writing. You have to find something that will let you fall into it rather than
right.
you start seeing things that are factually wrong, or the syntax is bad, or they have violated POV, or they've done all these things that filtered and all the rest of that stuff that
Hmm.
we work very hard not to do. Then yeah, it starts throwing me out of the story, and I can't get into it. So
Yeah, exactly. Um, and just I wanted to make one last
mhm.
point about the whole
Yep.
ghostwriting, I guess you should call it.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, 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 no. I have no issues with it, especially as I've
Mhm.
learned how the business works and all
Oh
that.
yeah.
The only
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
that I do still, because I went to a lot of conferences early on, because I was trying to
Hmm.
learn, trying to get my foot in the door. The only issue that as a writer now who's got 5 books out, the one thing that I will say burns me a little bit is if I know someone had a ghostwriter, for a fact, and
Hmm.
sometimes you can know it if you know know what's going on behind the scenes,
Sure.
but they present it as they wrote it and talk about all the
Hmm.
hours they put into and all that. That's the
Oh
one that
yeah.
I'm like, hey, I got no problem with you having someone write the book. I do have a problem with you taking the credit and not acknowledging that, hey, I only helped out with story ideas, or I only wrote 10% of the book. I had this person.
Hmm.
That's where I would be like, not cool with that one.
Yeah, I've seen ghostwriters, and I'll tell you, it was funny. I read a story by an author whose name I won't mention, but I was reading it, and then I reached out to an author in a similar genre, in the same genre. I said, "Man, I think I like this guy better than you." And because I was joking with him, haha, I like this guy writes better than you do, blah blah blah. He's like, dude, I wrote that, I ghost wrote it. So, oh, okay. And yeah, and this named author, this author that has his name on the cover. It only has his name on the cover. He talks about how he's writing crap and all this stuff. Like, yeah, okay, stop BS.
Well, we'll chat offline. I think I know who you're talking about because I think I might have had the same conversation with that
Yeah,
person
yeah,
years
yeah,
ago.
right. Yep.
Yeah, so but it's in what I try to tell people too, and again, I don't throw mud at people how they do it. This is a
Hmm.
business. And so from the
Yeah.
get-go when you get in it with a pure heart of wanting to write books, but do understand there's a business side of it. And the
Oh
business
yeah.
side's important to understand because the other thing you have to be careful of when you get in here with, I got my novel, I've written it, I'm proud of it, I want to go find representation is
Hmm.
you got to be careful. There are snakes in this grass, and there are
Oh
people
my
that
God, yeah.
will promise you the world. Hey, I can get this in front of an agent. I can give
Hmm.
you a developmental edit for $5,000. I can give you this.
Hmm.
I can give you that. And you might get a Grammarly edit and
Hmm.
never get it in front of an agent. So you got to be
Yeah.
really diligent to check into whoever's asking for money before you hand them money.
100%.
Yeah.
100% agree. Yeah, because it is there are more people out there who want to market your book than want to read your book, It's
Yeah.
especially if you go on any of the social media sites as an author, you're going to get DMs every day from people saying, "Hey, have you got a marketing plan?"
Yep.
That type of thing. Want to help you market with only $5,000. You can have this wonderful dream come true. You
Right.
can have 10,000 people read it. I'm like, okay, right. So yeah, it is a business. It does have its pitfalls, and obviously there are a number of things that once you get into it, you see how the sausage is made, and you're kind of turned off by it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, if you can maintain your love of writing and then turn that off and say, here's my product, not here's my baby,
Hmm.
because a lot of people they craft this
Oh,
beautiful
sure.
novel and they are labored over it until they're in tears and whatever, and they send it out there, and somebody says, nope, don't want it, and they're just devastated, right?
Yeah.
Just, oh my God, I can't do it. So that's the thing. You can't turn it out there and say, because somebody's going to tell you your baby's ugly, right? You got to be able to live with that. You got to have the thick skin for it, and yeah, to be able to turn around and go, okay, you didn't like it, I'll send it over here. Do
Hmm.
this. And just keep going. Just keep plugging away because yeah, it is very subjective out there.
Yeah. The good thing is if people stick to it, if
Mhm.
they have a talent to it or develop the talent more as the books go on or whatever,
Mhm.
you need to have some hope in you that it's the doors will open for you. But
Mhm.
you have to realize that you're gonna have to keep pushing forward to get that door to open. You're not just gonna throw out 10 query letters and be like, okay, I'm good. Let's see what happens. It's
Yeah.
like it doesn't work that way.
I know. I chuckle when I see new writers come onto the forum and they're like, "Hey, I just wrote a book. Does anybody know a good agent?" Like, okay, let's go back to the beginning and start talking because it's
Yeah.
it's not that easy.
Yeah. Well, like for me, when I wrote mine in 14, I didn't
Hmm.
have a clue. And I've talked about it a bunch on this podcast. One of the agents that rejected me with that first book, their response back to me was, email us back when you have 10,000 Twitter followers. And I was just like, what? I don't have a
Yep.
Twitter account.
Yep.
Twitter's for suckers. Why would I have a Twitter account? And they're like, welcome to the world of publishing. You're going to have to market your books,
Yep.
maybe more than the publisher, or
Oh
chances are more
yeah.
than the
Yeah. No
publisher.
question. Yeah. No question.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was Cottonmouth was a big release for me, going for a bigger publisher, going I actually agented
Hmm.
the deal, and um, where was I going with that? Just saying that, the publicity marketing side of it, I actually, as you mentioned, hired a publicist to help with this sort of thing because,
Hmm.
again, I want to write. I don't want to market. I don't want to get out there and start sending out letters to people and saying, "Hey, can you be in your podcast, please?"
Right.
So, and that's an investment on my side. I hope that it pays off eventually, but it's something that I think this is a novel that is gonna, as I say, rebrand me and set me out there as a big name author one of these days. but two-syllable name, J Bell.
Well, talk about Welcome to Cottonmouth. How did it come
Hmm.
about? You talked a little bit about the journey of how to get it published, but talk
Yeah.
about crafting the novel. Where did the idea come from? This was obviously not
Hmm.
the first novel you wrote. So was this stewing for a while, or was this something that came to you while you were
Yeah.
mowing your lawn? Where?
Oh yeah, that's the best time for novel ideas because then you forget everything by the time you get in and take a shower. No, a great question because I think as writers we all have this what if machine in our heads that is suddenly
Mhm.
always putting together little things. What if this happened? What if that happened? What if somebody created, took a cell from a dinosaur and recreated it, right? What if this? What if that? Um, so, yeah, I had this what if machine going, and at the time that I had this thought, it was 2019 or so, and sanctuary cities were big in the news. And I don't care if you
Mhm.
support sanctuary cities, don't support sanctuary, it doesn't matter. It was
Mhm.
just in the news and in my head, the thought of sanctuary cities. And then there's this program run by the CIA, excuse me, um, that is the National Resettlement Operations Center. It's a very small division of the CIA,
Okay.
and CIA is chartered to be able to import and resettle up to 100 people per year who have provided intelligence to us. And so those two things were sort of running through my head. And I
Mhm.
was thinking of retired spies. I might even have had some thoughts about I don't know if you've seen the movies with Bruce Willis, Red and Red 2.
Great movies.
Terrific,
Yeah.
terrific movies, and that concept of the retired spy
Mhm.
was cooking in the back of my head. And I thought, what if there was a sanctuary city for retired spies? What would
Mm.
that look like? And what if it was, what if it was in a small, scrubby little town? And so then the what if started rolling, right? So
Mhm.
what would happen if we had this setup of this sort of knight in tarnished armor who was the motel owner at this place who was a retired operator.
Mhm.
And what if some desperate women on the run came to see him, and what would happen then, and how would it work? And so that's where it sort of developed, and it took off. It was actually a very quick novel to write. Of course, this was 2019, 2020. I had a lot of time to write because we were all in lockdown and all this other nonsense. But
Mhm.
um, it went pretty quickly, and yeah, I think I was done 2020, mid 20s. I think I started querying that book. And it took a while again.
Mhm.
Query had an agent, um, tried to sell it. He couldn't sell it. And then like I said, we moved over to where we had the conversation with Josh Hood. So there you
Yeah.
go.
Well, again,
Yeah.
like I said, having someone like Josh and having someone step in and give that advice or have that
Hmm.
direction for you is the game changer. So never met Josh personally. I met him
Hmm.
online though, probably when I was early on, maybe 16 or 17.
Yep.
He actually was kind of, I haven't talked to him in years, maybe 5 years, I don't know. Probably since I've been
Hmm.
published, I've had no interaction with him. But that early on, what was cool about that, and I never forget it and grateful for it is that he actually took, I think, my first two chapters of that book that I had written
Hmm.
and basically gave me like a full developmental edit. Do this, do that. This doesn't work, and just red line the thing. And I mean, felt
Hmm.
like I was back in grade school basically. But that was invaluable help. And the thing that
Hmm.
stuck with me when he did that was here's someone that doesn't know me from Adam, doesn't owe
Yep.
me a thing and still takes an hour of their time or whatever it took to, and he had said when he had gotten back with me, you got the good stuff. You just need to work on it. You need to get better
Hmm.
at stuff. And that was kind of a morale boost I needed at the time because I was getting so many rejections from agents. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I wasn't part of a critique group or anything like that. So,
Hmm.
so the help from Josh was definitely appreciated. And after Josh was, like Adam Hamdy and other people. So
Hmm.
people would just cross through your path through social media, through conferences that basically helps almost steer you the right way because
Yeah.
your ship's leaning a little bit.
Yeah, well, we talked about the bad side of this business. The good side of this business, I think, is the community of support. You have
100%.
you've had writers that have helped me. See, people that, like you said, don't know me from anybody, and like
Yeah.
you ask them a question and they take the time to answer it. So, um, yeah, that the community of writers, I think we support each other. We root for each other when things go
Hmm.
well. Help each other when things go bad. So that's a good side of this business. It is a community, and I enjoy that. And I would say to you that, yeah, the fact that you went to these conferences and did those things is probably invaluable to your career because
Yes.
it's the same type of thing. It's I communicate with Josh and some of the other folks on my list and just get valuable feedback from them. You
Mhm.
know.
I remember when my debut came out in 2021, Brad Meltzer had been just a huge source of
Hmm.
kind of inspiration and support. And again, someone that had really reached a very high level of success in writing, but
Yep.
you wouldn't know it if you interact with him. And he'd always tell me, I'd be like, man, I think a few times I even said, you've made it, you've gotten it. He goes, there is no making it in this business. You
Hmm.
are still working hard, whether you think you're successful or not, you're still killing it. And when that first book came out, I ended up still sending him one, even though he said not to. He's like, I will buy a copy of your book. Do not, because he had told me early on, and I didn't heed him for the first two books.
Sure.
He said, don't give away books. Don't give away
Hmm.
books. Have people buy books. Don't just give away your book. So don't send me a book, basically. And I still did.
Hmm.
I had done hardcovers and I did like challenge coin. I kind of went all out for the Body Man coming out.
Yep.
Partially, I think because at that point I was on a 7 year journey to get published.
Hmm.
And it was kind of like this relief that finally I got that monkey off my back and I got a book out. And I didn't know if that would be the only
Yeah.
one. I was like, well, if this is the only one that actually gets legit published, I want to at least in my terms do it right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I enjoyed doing that. Like one of the things I did because the book focuses on this Secret Service and the body man as a role in the White House.
Hmm.
I sent all the ex-presidents, and at the time, Biden was current president at the time.
Hmm.
I sent them all hardcovers and challenge coins, and they were numbered coins that had the number of their presidency. And, I was like,
Nice.
and again, a couple people are like, dude, you're spending like $35 per president that you'll never see anything. I ended up getting a letter from George W. Bush back,
Okay.
personal letter.
Nice.
Then it had a second letter behind it, and I thought, oh wow, a second letter. What else did George have to say? That was his communication chief or whatever, chief of staff that was like their publicist. George is really happy to write this letter and support you, and he's really proud that you did this. You cannot share the letter from George with anybody. You can't put it online, basically. And I'm like, okay. I got something back from the Carter secretary, basically. I
Yeah.
got something from
Yeah.
Carter. So I got
Nice.
two out of the rest of them. I thought I'd get something from Clinton or Obama.
Hmm.
I knew Trump was probably very unlikely because I could not find an address for Trump. So, and I
Sure.
knew someone that knew him directly, and I even reached out to them, and I'm like, I'm not looking for his home address, but like, where can I send something to? And they're like, just send it to Mar-Lago. That's all I can tell you. So,
Hmm.
found the address for Mar-Lago, sent it off, and probably the security guard at Mar-Lago cracked open the package and said, threw the book over their
Yep.
shoulder and
Yep.
probably never got seen. So,
Or he might have read it at the desk while he was there doing his guard duties. You never know.
maybe, but he apparently didn't give it to Donald.
Yeah.
So.
No. No. I understand. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is fine. So maybe that number 45 coin is floating out there somewhere.
Hey, valuable collector's item. No question.
Exactly. So, but no, just kind of getting that monkey off the back of getting that first book
Hmm.
to me was super exciting. And it also fed the fuel of going. I've talked about this to other people because they're like, oh man, does every book feel as good? And I'm like, no, no. The first book, it's like your first kid. Not that you
Hmm.
don't love your second kid, but that first time you hold this human being in your hand, you have this moment of awe that
Hmm.
doesn't have the same feeling the second time. Anything like with life, it doesn't always. It's not always. It's not that it's bad. It's just different. So my joy for each book, the next four ones that came out, was pretty strong, but it was also very short-lived.
Hmm.
And the last book that just came out this summer came out on a Tuesday, and we went up to the airport Friday evening to fly to Yellowstone. So
Okay.
I had like a 2 day gap of like, oh, cool, this is fun. And then I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to Yellowstone. That's cool. So, and then it was, I still focused on marketing and stuff while I was out there, but mainly I
Yep.
just, my focus was to just enjoy the beauty of Yellowstone. So,
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you got that's a tough thing to high bar to overcome as far as joy is concerned. So yeah,
yeah,
that would be difficult. But yeah,
absolutely.
the I still get excited on book day when the package arrives and you can open up and you can see your thing in print and go, "Ooh, that's just cool." I mean, I still get excited about that. So, but yeah, the first one's always nice, and you get to wear feeling of walking on the clouds for some time, however long it is that you've gotten it
Hmm.
out there. Um, but yeah, and I felt the same way about this one, which is, I think, like I said, is rebranding, a different step up the ladder,
Right.
if you will. And yeah, just tremendously excited to get this one out there in the public and get it seen.
Which you were kind enough. So speaking of this one, if I can get the angle
Yeah,
to.
I was feeling bad that you said don't send a free copy. Well, you got a free copy. What can I say?
Well, yeah, and I don't, and I actually, as my brain was saying that, I was like, we did get you a free
Yeah,
book,
yeah,
but
right.
again, that speaks to the idea that being so subjective, where you talk to
Hmm.
one person, they go, well, this is what you need to do.
Yeah,
Talk
right.
to the next person, and they completely contradict what that person said, and you're like, well, they're both New York Times bestsellers. Who's right? And it's like, well, there's different paths to get there.
Hmm.
So there is no one's right and no one's wrong
Yeah,
necessarily. There's just different means to get to the same goal.
I just do what my publicist tells me. That's all.
Smart man,
Yeah.
smart man. Especially if you're paying the publicist. If you're paying the
Oh yeah.
publicist, you might as well listen to them, or you're kind of
Yeah.
shooting yourself in your own foot.
Yeah. She's brilliant. I'm going to give her a plug. You should look up Liz Malone if you want to hire a publicist because she's terrific.
Oh, that's awesome. I've heard. I know several other authors that have used her as well, so I've heard
Hmm.
good things about her. So,
Yep.
um, where do we go next? What's happening? What's going on in Jay Bell's world for right? You got something else done that you're shopping around or
Yeah.
have a deal
Yeah.
for?
Well,
Or?
we're well, yeah. That's a good thing. Um, Yeah, I am 75K words into the sequel for Cottonmouth.
Okay.
I should wrap that up soon. I meant to have it done by publication day, but real life and paying bills and stuff got in the way.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's going to be next. And I'll tell you, I have writer ADD, right? So I like to chase ideas. I don't care what the genre is. If it's something that comes into my what if machine, I'll go out and I'll do it. So I had this what if about a military science fiction book,
Okay.
and I got into it. And I'm writing the hell out of it, and I kept thinking, okay, now I got to go back and write this scene to make that make sense, and then I got to go back and write this scene to make that make sense, and it just started to balloon into this enormous
Hmm.
thing, and I had to say, okay, I got to put this aside. I got to work on the other things. So it's sapped a lot of time
Right.
that I probably could have used for something productive. But hey, at some point it will come into being that I'll have this military sci-fi, and it may be under a different name when I publish. I don't know, but
Hmm.
regardless, um, it's interesting that I think I probably have 4 books started somewhere, and now I just need to focus and finish the sequel so I can have that out there in time for the movie or the the series, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Well, and so my thoughts on that is that that's a good thing because I think
Hmm.
when some people call it the muse or all
Hmm.
different names for the creativity side of someone. I think when it speaks, it's good to listen to it. Now, if that's going to distract, if you're under contract and you have to have a book
Yeah.
done by
Right.
September 1st and you go, I got this idea for the space opera that's set on Saturn and stuff. So I'm going to
Mhm.
start writing that. Well, then that's where discipline needs to kick in of saying, hey, I have actually requirements that are going to keep me on
Yep.
task. But if barring that being the case, I think it's good because, like you just said, what, maybe 4 books in some works in some form
Hmm.
that you have? I think I have three, and not three that are 1,000, 2,000 words. I have three
Yeah.
that are in the 30,000 word range.
Yep.
So a
Yep.
third of a book, a solid third of a book.
Hmm.
And it used to scare me because I was like, the first one I had like that, the reason I put it aside was because I got the book deal for The Body Man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and what I ended up doing is during the course of the next couple of years with my publishing journey, I ended up going back to that book, and that is the book that I just published this summer. Completely different name. A
Hmm.
lot of the stuff that I wrote stayed, but I moved things around,
Sure.
brought characters in that weren't there originally, and I just
Hmm.
reworked it. So the advice to authors out there is if you get those words down, even if it's just 30,000 words and you lose focus or you lose the desire to finish it, you might get back to it at some point and you might turn it into who knows what. It might be a beautiful
Oh
thing,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
you got to start it before you can then go do something with it at some point.
Oh yeah. And I don't know about you. I'm not an outliner, so I would start out and just with the what ifs and and
Hmm.
build the story out from there to find out where it's going to go. And sometimes that's the bad thing because you can get so far down the road and you're like, this is stupid. This doesn't make sense. I just need to put this aside and come back to it when I can stand to chop out a bunch of it and rewrite it because it's just not working.
Right.
And to your point, I mean, I'm not under contract for another book, so I'm just doing it on spec. I
Mhm.
think it'll be fine. I think we'll move it on to the publisher and they'll be happy to have it. But the the other publisher, and I probably have people out. I know I have people out there like, when's the next Sam Cable book going to be? Because it's I've got a couple series and a
Mhm.
bunch of standalones, and there's a following that is looking for the next one of
Mhm.
those. So got to get back to that too.
Get after
Yeah, I know, right?
it.
Geez, what am I doing? Why am I talking to you? I should be
I
writing.
know. Why are you doing a podcast
Yeah,
promoting
right.
your current book? You should be writing
Go buy that one so I can afford to write the other ones.
100 exactly.
Mm,
That's the moral to it. But no, that's also the dilemma. So I'm in the same, why am I interviewing you? Because I have a
mm.
book that I've already promoting that's coming out next summer that I've written 3,000 words. So I literally have to. But the
Yeah.
fun part about that is that doesn't intimidate me in any way, shape, or form. That means I have to have it done by February. And
Sure.
my brain looks at it and goes, cool, you're starting October.
Yeah.
And you'll get, and then, because that will be my sole, besides my job and my kids, that will
Hmm.
be the sole focus every evening for hours, for multiple hours
Right.
before I go to sleep. I will knock out. And I've done it now enough. I've finished 5 books. Well, I've finished more than five. I've published 5. I've finished
Hmm.
8 and I've started 3 others. So it's not an arrogance, but it's just a confidence in knowing, okay, if I have a requirement that I've given myself, I just have to be disciplined and I can get it done. So it doesn't
Yep.
bother me because I've the story's in my head. I already know where I'm
Hmm.
going with it. I've got like detail. I'm like you. I am a hybrid now. I've changed. I'm now a
Hmm.
hybrid pantser much more than plotter, but I do plot some. And so I
Hmm.
have my notes on my phone. I literally added 2 notes even today, just doing the course of regular day stuff of ideas of like, okay, I need a chapter that does this. And then the
Hmm.
next line says, and then you need a chapter somewhere that does that. And what I do before I get ready to write those, dive back into that project, is I'll start going through the notes and going, okay, how do I organize this? At some point in the story, this needs to
Hmm.
dovetail. But I like to give myself large chunks of I sit down at night and I don't know what I'm doing because to me personally, that's when the magic happens.
Yeah. Yep. Just imagining the what ifs and what would make this character pop, what would make that scene go. It's all part of the process and that's why we do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have a series though, so the one thing I do have to keep in the back of my mind is you've
Hmm.
got a bunch of these people in 5 different books in some form or another, so you have to keep it straight. So I'm constantly always
Yeah,
asking
yeah.
myself, what did they
Yeah.
do?
Continuity.
What's their
Yeah.
role? Because if I get it
Yeah.
wrong, someone's going to be like, her hair. Like one of the books a couple years ago, someone had reached out. They're like, you must have a, it was one of my early readers. You must have a ponytail thing, right? And I was like, well, what do you mean? I don't get it. They're like, you got like 4 female characters and you mentioned ponytails. I'm like, oh crap. Okay. So like
Hmm.
go through my Word document and search the word ponytail and be like, okay, get rid of it for this character, get rid
Yeah.
of it for that
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's funny. Continuity is a pain. Yeah,
yeah.
you gotta keep up with it. Like you said, series books. If you're down the road, all of a sudden the guy's got blue eyes instead of brown. Somebody's gonna pick up on it and let
Yeah.
you know. And
Brad
I'm
Taylor
terrible at
was Brad Taylor talked about that. I don't know if he said it to me directly or if it was a talk he was doing at a conference years ago. Is he said the interesting thing about writing a series is as soon as you write those first words, before you do, the world is yours. You can go
that. Hmm.
any direction, but as soon as you form a
Yep,
box. And that box
exactly.
gets smaller each time you write. You can't have a 6'2" protagonist that all of a sudden is 6'8" in the third book or six
Hmm.
or 5'4" in the fifth book or whatever. So
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. And he written like 20 books in the series, Brad Taylor?
Brad?
Yeah. Or I'm thinking of somebody else.
No, I
Maybe I'm
think
thinking of Brad Thor.
I think Thor I think is past that now.
Yeah.
T Taylor and Thor are around the same, and yeah, I believe they're both in that 20 book range. My numbers are confusing because I just talked to Kyle Mills recently, and
Yep.
Kyle I think has published like 21 books, but he's written like 25 or something because he's done some ghostwriting stuff, I believe, some ones without his name on it. So his, yeah, but all of them are in that kind of sweet spot of they've really got this experience behind them of multiple decades now of writing.
Well, yeah, the key that I think that I wanted to learn that I haven't yet is how do you write the same series or the same character over and over again? And Lee Child does it with Jack Reacher's his shtick never changes. It kind of drives me nuts actually. But
Yeah,
uh, you know, at some point, don't you get bored with it? I do.
right.
I don't want to be the same character. I want to go out and do other things. Like I said, I have ADD as a writer. I want to write different stuff.
Maybe if you're paid well enough, you just
Yeah,
override
right.
your
You
your
just
boredom.
keep cranking it, man. Or you hire somebody else, hire somebody with a smaller name than theirs, and go for it.
Yeah, when the dump truck comes in and fills up your driveway, you're like,
Hmm.
this character is kind of a
Yeah,
jerk, but I'll just keep writing it.
yeah, yeah. It's selling. It's selling. I'm just throw out
Yeah.
another one.
But I agree with you, and that's actually kind of one of the thoughts I had when I created my series, my Body Man series, is I had a lot of questions about it when I was first doing my press, and they're like, so Nick Jordan's the Body Man, and do you see this as a 20-year series? And I was like, no, I actually wrote a role within the White House more
Hmm.
than I wrote a character. I said because I want to be able to kill him at some point or have him retire or whatever. And they were kind of like, and I said,
Ooh,
yeah. I said, well, I said I kind of, and to say some of the big names out there, after a while, Mitch Rapp gets old. After a
yeah.
while, yeah, physically, but they don't really
Hmm.
ever age him much.
Of course not.
But
Yeah.
just that character, can you read that character for 30 years? And maybe, and some people might 30 years in love it. To me,
Yep.
after a while, the thing that I kind of hit a spot with some of those serial series that just go on for, decades is the magic of it is how do they get him to the end of the book? But the problem with my brain is when I open that first page and start reading it, it says Mitch Rapp does blank, blank, blank. And I know, well, he'll be on the last page because Kyle has a 3-book contract. So they
Yeah.
can't kill Mitch
Yeah.
Rapp. So
Yeah.
it does take a little bit, and that's why when I created my own series, I was like, I want to be able to kill. I kill someone in Supreme Justice, and I got my first message about 2 weeks after the book came out, and someone messaged me, they're like, I can't believe you killed such and such, and I was just like, I had to kill
Hmm.
the character. It was time for someone to go, and that's going to feed parts of the series going
Yeah.
forward. It's like
Because you'll have somebody else to introduce at some point in time.
exactly.
A new fresh person. Yes. New take on it. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, hey, Jay, I've enjoyed talking to you. I always end these episodes, and it's not a gotcha thing, but I always end it with the same question. So I think as an
Mhm.
author, you'd agree with me. Life is like a book. We have a first page, we have a last page. The beauty of life is we don't know how many pages are going to be in between those two. But as a writer, you have the opportunity to write your last page. What does that last page say?
Ooh. What does my last page say?
Yeah.
I hope it says I'm a good father, that that took care of my kids and my family. I mean, that's the main thing in life for me is the rest of it is just fluff. It's how do we get there?
That's a good answer. There's,
All
I've
right.
asked it 60. Not everyone. Some couple people have been repeat guests, so I've not
Mhm.
asked the same question twice. That would be silly. But I probably asked it 60 something times, and I'm always interested by the answer. And I've had a couple people struggle with it, and then they've asked like follow-up questions. I was like, it's no more complicated than you want to make it. I'm like,
It's not a trick
you can
question.
take it very serious, or you can take
Mhm.
like I think someone early on when I first started filming the podcast basically said they want to be sitting on a porch on a rocking chair watching their grandkids and just keel over and have a heart attack. And I'm like, cool, no wrong
Hey,
answer.
yeah. Check out at your as the epitome of life when you're done. Yep.
And I mentioned it in my last podcast, so people that are listening are going to be like, "You just said that last week, or the last week that that one aired." But Meg Gardner had the one that made me smile probably the most, and it was
Mhm.
and Meg's very quick-witted, very very smart lady. She immediately like as soon as I got it out, her answer was to be continued, and I'm like, oh, that's something. And no one said anything like that, so I was kind of like, okay, that's a cool way to look at it. So.
Yeah. Everything being what is the WC Fields line about all things considered, I'd rather be in Philadelphia
Right.
type of thing. So
Well, Jay,
yeah, no,
thank you for
I
coming
appreciate the
on.
time. Thank you very much.
Where should people go to get a copy of Welcome to Cottonmouth?
It's all the big name sellers online. there are some copies in airports, actually, physical copies. There's in Hudson News. So if you're traveling and you stop by Hudson News, take a look on their table because I'm supposed to be out there. And I know I actually that's one of the exciting things. I walked by and I saw one of my books in the Ontario, California airport. It's like, oh my God, my book's in the airport.
Did you stop
But
and
there,
sign it?
no, I should have, but I had to go. I had to get going. But it was like, yeah,
Hey, what in the
I was
world?
very excited. So anyway,
Yeah.
long story short, that physical copies are, can be ordered off of Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the big names, and then of
Awesome.
course ebooks are everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually I'm a finance guy by day for my day
Mhm.
job, and
Yeah.
I have a spreadsheet of like my characters, and
Hmm.
I've done a lot of cameos in my books, so I actually said I better have that as part of my spreadsheet so I don't give like the same person a wrong, like another cameo or something. So I keep track of all that. And the first tab is all the financial stuff, and sales and all that jazz. And I looked the other day to see what the percentage was for ebook sales, and I was just like, wow. And to think like 5 years ago, I didn't even own an ebook, but man, the majority of my sales, so much of my sales are ebooks.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Trust
wild.
me, I love mine. And traveling, it's great to have all 500 books on one little
On
device.
one little device, yeah. And the airport thing, congratulations for that. That's one of the things that I know with my own indie press. I don't have that. I know that I could work with probably my local airport and they might keep a
Hmm.
couple copies if I beg and steal and cheat and all
Sure.
that. But I do a decent amount of travel, go overseas some too, and
Hmm.
I want at some point to be able to be in an airport and see one of my books, and it'll be a Jack Carr moment where I have to go over and sign it and take a picture of it, and it will be yeah, again, a milestone. And you need to have, even if those things don't happen in the time frame you want, or maybe never happen, it's good to have goals. And I think that's what kind of pushes us in the right direction is to have some goals and then get off your butt and make them happen. So
Absolutely, man. Hey, thank you again.
thank you,
Very much
Joe.
appreciate the
Thank you, Jay.
time.
Take care. Appreciate
Take
it.
care.